What's going on, guys? Chapter 287 of My Hero Academia sees the return of All For One's brother in an epic battle inside the Vestige world. In this video, we'll be going over the spoilers for this chapter, but be sure to subscribe because on Monday, as usual, I'll be doing a full breakdown of the official release. In those videos, we tend to talk about details that you may have missed and, talk about the dialogue a bit more. So yeah, be sure to check that out. And without further ado, let's get into what we know so far. The chapter picks up with the Vestige of Nana Shimura coming face to face with All For One and Shigaraki. According to the fan translations, she remarks how unpleasant it is to have to see All For One even in death. The next part was quite funny in that All For One begins to roast Nana Shimura, who is obviously a person that he personally killed, and he straight up calls her an incompetent dead woman right in front of her grandson. That's just uncalled for. At this moment, Shigaraki has several flashbacks, the first one being to earlier in the battle when Gran Torino told him to stop trampling over Nana Shimura's memory, to which Shigaraki was like, who the hell is that? He also remembers the time as a kid when his sister showed him the picture of his hero grandmother, and then the other time when he was about to get All For One and she personally tried to stop him. He asks her why she's in the Vestige world, to which she just avoids the question and starts to think about how this is Kotaro's son. The whole time this is going on, we see that AFO is using Shigaraki as a vehicle to materialize himself in this Vestige world. We saw a glimpse of this in the last chapter, with AFO literally starting to emerge from Shigaraki's body, and that process is still continuing here. From the scans, it looks like a wave of decay emanates from Shigaraki and heads straight towards Nana Shimura and Deku, who's currently lying on the floor, pretty helpless. I mentioned in my last chapter review how these lines indicated that Shigaraki might destroy the Vestige world, and these words begin to ring true as the decay is now mere inches away from touching Deku. I kind of wonder if this is like the Matrix in that if you die in the Vestige world, you die in real life. Let me know your thoughts on this down below. Do you think Deku would just wake up, or would he just, actually die here? Thankfully, in this instance, we don't have to find out because Nana Shimura uses her powers in a way we've never seen before, and by outstretching her hands, she's able to temporarily stop the decay from reaching them. As this is happening, we start to see the beginning of something we'd kind of suspected, in that All For One is kind of betraying Shigaraki a little bit. It's hard to tell. I'll get into this more in a second, but at this point AFO is beginning to materialize more in the Vestige world, and the reverse is true for Shigaraki. What we see is that as All For One begins to, have more of a presence, Shigaraki is actually sinking into All For One, almost like he's being absorbed or something. All For One's brother then appears out of the shadows and stands directly next to Nana Shimura. Can I just say that this guy looks a lot like Shigaraki? He's basically what Shigaraki would look like if he had a good skincare routine. The brother tells AFO that they won't be going with him and that they've chosen to remain inside One For All with Deku. However, as you're about to see, I don't think it's entirely his choice whether or not that happens. As Shigaraki's body continues to be absorbed, All For One is finally able to pull his right hand out, because if you look back at the last chapter, All For One's right hand was kind of merged into Shigaraki, but now at this point it's fully formed. AFO tells Shigaraki that this is true power, before activating the All For One quirk. For those that don't know, All For One steals other powers by utilizing the hole in the hand of its user, and in this case, the hole in AFO's right hand begins to suck in One For All, as we see the vestiges of Nana Shimura and All For One's brother begin to be unnaturally pulled towards it. Deku is still on the ground looking up helplessly as the decay begins to approach him yet again, and AFO gleefully remarks how passing One For All to a good-for-nothing person like Deku was a big mistake. However, the first user of One For All claps back and says that unlike All For One, Deku is a person who does things for the sake of other people, regardless of how hard it may be. Deku watches on as there seems to be only a little bit left of Shigaraki, with most of his body now being absorbed by All For One. In a moment of unparalleled heroism, he jumps up from the ground towards All For One, seemingly with the intention to save Shigaraki. In the last chapter, Nana Shimura mentioned how Deku couldn't move in this world, but in this panel we see him jumping up, darting forward with the expression in his eyes that, indicates he wants to save Shiggy. This was weird to me because Midoriya did say previously how he could never forgive Shigaraki after, what happened with Gran Torino. But yeah, in this moment, it's clear that Deku's conscience just couldn't let him stand by and watch someone get absorbed. Back in the real world, a bright white flash explodes in the sky as the bodies of Deku and Shigaraki are sent flying away from each other. I reckon this is sort of like Inception, in that even though it may have seemed like a long time in the Vestige world, it was probably like 1 second in the real world. So I imagine to someone like Todoroki who was watching the fight, it looks like Shigaraki just grabbed Deku and then there was an explosion straight afterwards. I have to point out that we didn't get clarification on whether Shigaraki was fully absorbed by All For One in this moment, but my assumption is he was not fully absorbed because of what happens in the remainder of this chapter. As both Deku and Shigaraki fall to the ground, we hear the thoughts of both All For One and Midoriya. To start with Deku, he notes how One For All was not taken, and he kind of internally wishes for Shigaraki just not to move anymore. Basically, he doesn't want the fight to continue, as if Shigaraki was to regenerate right now, then everyone would be done for, because everyone's just super tired. Deku, his arms are destroyed, he's not got any fight left in him. So for everyone's best interest, Shigaraki cannot move right now. Meanwhile, All For One is in Shigaraki's mind, and this bit was really helpful because it explains why One For All was not taken. In the words of All For One, because Shigaraki's operation was stopped at just 75% completion, the All For One quirk was not fully attached to his body, and therefore there wasn't enough strength to take One For All. However, he then goes on to think that Shigaraki's body shall be completed, and for now they need to retreat and just, get Shigaraki recharged. Let me know down below what you think All For One's real intentions are right now, because we saw in the Vestige world, he's trying to absorb Shigaraki, and in my mind that meant that he's trying to take over Shigaraki's body. But from this wording here, when he's telling Shigaraki to retreat and get back to full health and all that, it makes it seem like he's looking out for Shigaraki. So it's just a big back and forth from chapter to chapter, but like the first user of One For All said, AFO just does things for himself, so I wouldn't be surprised if his true intention is to eventually take over Shigaraki's body. The chapter then moves away from this particular battle as we get another view of Gigantomachia's rampage. Dabi continues to be the happiest we've ever seen him as he tells Skeptic to prepare for Hero Society to fall. Remember guys, it was Dabi specifically who chose to bring Skeptic along with the rest of the League of Villains. And at this moment, Skeptic does have his laptop out, which could mean a number of things. As we saw in My Villain Academia, Skeptic uses this laptop to control the duplicates that he creates. But additionally, he can also use it to hack things as well. And someone suggested to me on Twitter that maybe Skeptic will hack the news station and reveal Dabi's identity once they make it to the battlefield. This was an opinion that I personally agree with, because think about it. If Dabi was to just claim responsibility for Gigantomachia's rampage, and then he reveals himself as the son of the #1 hero, it's game over for Hero Society. How is the #1 hero's son causing all this destruction? So I think it would be in the villain's best interest for them to do this. And yeah, that's what I think the plan is, at least for now. The chapter ends with Toga and Mr. Compress having a conversation, although the fan translations on this bit were a bit dubious, so I'm just going to wait till the official translations come out for this part. All I can say for this video is that she's talking about Ochako and Midoriya, but yeah, I don't want to get into specifics because it wasn't entirely clear from the translations that I have personally. But like I said, be sure to check out the breakdown on Monday, and also on this Sunday at 12 PM Eastern Time, I will be doing a live chapter reaction on Twitch, so be sure to follow me on there if you want to see that. But yeah, that's everything for today guys. Be sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.